welcome to Read Drink Talk, a book club podcast where we read dope books, drink liquor, and talk shit. My name is Anthony Renteria.
I'm Ariel Fletcher.
And today is our third and final breakdown of Carrie. Carrie was released in 1974, and it's a horror novel by American author Stephen King. It centers around a young woman named Carrie who is bullied at school and has telekinetic powers. Now, just as a reminder, we will be covering the entire book now, and we will be spoiling anything and everything that happens in this book, so beware. All right, so I guess to dig into it, I'm just gonna say off the top, I'm already kind of drunk. I was gonna go get some Crown to take shots because that was our tradition. I don't have anything to take shots with, so
Okay.
I'm already drunk, so that's my form of celebration.
He's already there. Yeah, okay, good thing you didn't have shots because I forgot, and I have vodka, but just like vodka shots is not, it's just not it. So that would not have been good. But I will be prepared for our next book when we get to the end. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go buy some Crown now. So yeah, because that's some red, right? The Golden Sun. That's gonna be a hot ending. Yeah, and see, that's a lot easier, so we can be like, okay, cool, like we're at the end, like bam, we made it through, take shots, but totally forgot. So what, I know you said you're already drunk. What you been drinking on? What you been sipping on over there?
Okay, so I got something weird here. Okay, so I went to Publix, bought $100 of groceries. That was not worth it. But one of the things I bought was Strange Beast, and it's hard kombucha.
Oh.
You know what kombucha is?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like that weird bacteria drink or whatever that's supposed to be good for your stomach or whatever. So I would drink, and then I would drink the kombucha the day after, and it would like actually make my stomach feel good. And then I saw this, and like I've been drinking, like I'm fucked up on it, and my stomach feels great. I don't have a headache. I feel good. The only thing I will say, like it is very sour. It's like drinking a lemon.
You said you got it at Publix?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. I'm gonna look for that. I'm gonna try that.
What are you drinking though? What do you got going on?
I am doing the vodka sodas once again. So just some vodka, club soda, and a little bit of lime. I find that this works for me. I didn't have a headache or anything the next day. I think it's because it's literally just vodka and water. So I feel like I'm staying hydrated. If that makes sense. Because I know like alcohol dehydrates you already. But then I just feel like, I mixed it with water and ice. So it's like replenishing in some sort of way.
So we both have found a safe path here.
Yeah, for sure. It's working.
Yeah.
And it gets me there, It's vodka, so I feel it.
To get into this book, this is the final part. So I wanted to ask you just off the top, how was this ending? Was it disappointing? Was it okay? How are you feeling?
It was okay, but I still think, even after we said all that, the last 2 episodes, that he still continued to spoil it. And I say that because when it was coming down to the actual action, right? Like, okay, bam, like, boom. We get the blood dropped on Carrie from someone else's perspective first.
Yeah.
Before we even get, like,
this
is what happened with, like, we get the whole thing, like the blood dropped on Carrie, bam, and then she's like falling, and then she gets up and she runs out, and then everyone's just standing around, and then bam, the sprinklers come on, and then bam, the doors lock, and then bam, Carrie's right there. Like, I really wanted to get this perspective first from Carrie. It's like I really wanted to experience what was happening as Carrie was experiencing it, and I feel like that would have made it more powerful almost, because she doesn't fucking know what she's gonna do next. She's just like, oh shit, they're about to get rained on, bitch. Like, they're about to feel this, and then actually that shit's not enough. Just getting rained on is not enough. These bitches are gonna die because they don't even care about it. Like, I wanted that so bad, and it's like we weren't we weren't getting it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I still just felt like it kind of took away like all that
Yeah.
passion. It's like I almost would have rather gotten it from her perspective first, felt everything, and then if we had to go back,
Then
maybe
feel
then
what
go
other people
back,
feel.
yeah, and like get it from other people's perspectives. Like, okay, well then we can get like the people sitting down with the commission and getting questioned and kind of telling us a little bit about what was going on. But I really, it's
Yeah.
like I see why you were kind of like, oh, you're not gonna get what what you were expecting, because it's like, yeah, I didn't, because I just felt like it still could have been better. It wasn't horrible. Honestly, it was a lot more gruesome than I remember, like
Yeah.
from a movie. I guess I just didn't realize that Carrie literally like went after the whole town. I mean, people who didn't know Carrie, people she doesn't know. I mean, she just was killing any and everybody. She was just out for revenge. She wanted people to hurt. And
Yeah.
that was just that in the story. So it was more gruesome. So in that way, I'm surprised. Oh, but then, okay, there's so many things I could say. So I know that was just supposed to be my like basic like overview. But okay, so like, how are you feeling listening to it for however many time, the umpteenth time? Like, how was that for you?
I think this ending is better than the rest of the book. I do like how we get some of the things from other perspectives, because we do get a lot of gruesome shit that I like you were saying, like, oh fuck, like people like literally being electrocuted and fucking dying, and like people feeling like, fuck, I'm dead, and everyone's dead and everyone's fucked, and like that kind of feeling is exciting to me. Like oh my god, like I don't think that any of the movies feel or capture that element of like,
okay
400 people died. It wasn't just a prom full of kids. It was random ass people coming out of their house like, what the fuck's going on? And then
getting
an electrical
burned in
cable.
the fucking streets. Yeah, that's so crazy.
If I was the writer, I would have had the moment happen, the blood splash on Carrie, and then this weird, like almost like a dream state of her anger. And then you just feeling what she's feeling and thinking what she's thinking about, I wish they would all burn. And then they start burning. I wish they would all drown. And then they start drowning. And, you know, like feel the rage and almost feel gross. Like, oh my God, she is at that point of, you know, terrorism, of school shooter, of, you know, the person who's lost control. Because that's what she is, essentially. Yeah. And it would have read really weird and almost like, I don't really understand what's happening. Yeah, and then I would have gone back. And have perspectives of people who did not deserve to die, who are scared and just like, how do I help? And then they die. And then it loops back over to another person and they die. And it loops back to another person and they die. And keep going into more and more like innocent people. And then we would wrap back up to Carrie, and then, you know, she dies at the end or whatever. But then it's like the echo of that harm. All the people that person's life was attached to, all those people's lives are forever different because of this one act. And like that is the one thing that I totally forgot at the end of this. Like even Sue Snell, like she's in an argument with the people questioning her about whatever the fuck and like the telekinetic or whatever. And they're like, we don't believe in that. That's never going to happen again. And like that part really hit me, because I was like, this is how fucking people in our country react to school shootings. They're like, well, this is a fluke accident. You know, this won't happen again. They got their weapons because whatever random thing. Right. And it's like, motherfucker, shut the fuck up. Like, and how many times have we seen that happen, right? Where they say, oh, this is a one-off thing. Like, how many times in our lifetimes, and not even just like, okay, like I'm in the 26 past year, like exactly, like it's not even like, oh, I can remember for the past 26 years it's happening. I'm talking about the past 5-10 years. How many times can I think about a school shooting happening? Because it's only getting more frequent. It's getting worse. Because it wasn't even happening when I was in high school. Because the thing is, I mean, I'm sure it was happening, but it wasn't like it was happening now. Because when I was in high school, we didn't have like school shooter thing, like drills. We didn't have that kind of stuff. But kids these days have that. Yeah, like my sister, like, you know, I have 2 younger siblings, a 14-year-old sister and an 11-year-old brother. And so my sister's in high school, and since she was in middle school, they weren't allowed to wear backpacks.
Like, they weren't allowed to have backpacks because of this, because in middle school, because people or students have brought guns in like this. So it wasn't even just like, oh, I've seen schools that have like clear backpack things, but her school, they weren't allowed backpacks at all. So I'm like...
And that's their solution.
Right.
No backpacks. That's the fucking solution, is no backpack. That is the most... That'd be like, all right, no telekinetic powers.
Right. None allowed.
It's like, that's not the problem. The problem is not the powers that Carrie has. I don't know if Stephen King meant this because this was before all these school shootings, but I think he did mean it in the way, like in his original version of this, it was about, you know, these two women committing suicide at the school that he was a part of because they were bullied. And I think this is like an extreme metaphorical version of that, which now we see the reality of when kids are bullied or they feel like outsiders or they feel depressed or suicidal, they take others with them because of this pain and this damage that they have suffered in their life. And like, I feel like the telekinetic powers in this story is like one-to-one for like automatic weapons. And everyone like... And I'm not supporting automatic weapons. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't think any fucking American should have automatic weapons, because why the fuck do you need to shoot 50 bullets per second? You know, like that's my opinion. I think in like in a safe, like fucking competitive field, like if you want to be like an active, like, because there's sport to it. I understand the sport to it. Right. You know, like in tactical training or whatever the fuck. Yeah. But like, there's no reason you should have a fucking automatic weapon just to fucking hang out in your fucking truck.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you're not hunting deer with a fucking AK-47. But anyway, so I think this is like a metaphor for that, and like how this little judge panel thing is like fucking questioning Sue Snell and like other people about it, about the telekinetic powers, and they're immediately like, it wasn't that. Like, that was a weird thing. We can't prove that. And that's, like, literally what, like, in our country, like, the Republican Party does and the NRA does. It's like, well, it's not the automatic weapon that's at fault. It's... It's like... I don't know. It fucking drives me insane. And then, like, reading this whole last part, it, like, really tied into, like, damn, like, this is so of our time. It's kind of disturbing. And then it's even disturbing how everyone reacts to it, which is they just shake it off. It's like, whatever.
Right.
400 people died. It won't happen again.
Right,
we'll
no biggie.
Rebuild. Thoughts and prayers. Let's move on. Let's move on. Oh my god, like that whole fuck. Like, I got pissed off reading it.
No,
I was like, what the fuck?
I definitely feel, because it's like, and even, you know, even Sue was, she's like, why why is this the part that you're questioning me about? You're asking me how I knew Carrie was here. How everybody's been telling you. Oh, also, that's something that I thought was interesting, just to swing back around.
The red flags. Every single school shooter has had red flags and had reports to the FBI or other police departments, and no one does anything. Every fucking time.
Right.
They're like, oh, they got a report, and then no one did anything.
Yep. And even at the end of the book, we see that little excerpt from the principal, like, resigning, and he's like, I can't help but think, like, if I would have done something or thought this was more important when that bullying situation was happening a few weeks ago, then maybe something would be different. And even the teacher, Miss Desjardins, saying like, yeah, I'm gonna have to resign, because she's like, I think I would kill myself if I ever taught again, but like, can't help but think, like, if I would have just been there for this girl, or like, stuck up for her, like, shit would be different. 400 people would still be alive, right? Like, that shit's, and it's 400 plus. I can't even remember. It was 400 something, and then like some people were still missing. So I'm just like, I mean, we're probably like closer to 500 people dead. And that's just insane. That's a lot of that shit blew my mind. That's the part that I was like, okay, well, that was like a little bit of a plot twist, because for me, I'm thinking, I don't really remember the movie. I'm thinking like, okay, her mom's gonna be dead, but I was thinking like 2030. Like, even the prom
me, I was thinking 2030 prom kids.
Yeah, like, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, the prom kids are gonna die, and then to find out she literally was like, fuck this whole town. I don't care who you are, you're gonna die. That was that shit. I was like, oh, okay. Like, you got me there, Stephen King. I wasn't expecting that, even though you told me everything else that was gonna happen. I wasn't expecting that. So,
and like, I didn't even know if I want to like talk about this on the fucking podcast, but like when I was bullied in like elementary school, like I had very angry thoughts about the people who bullied me, because like that's the only thought I had as a kid. Right. And like every time I read these kind of stories, like I sympathize. Even when I hear about these events, I kind of sympathize. Not that I think anyone should hurt anyone else, because I don't think that's the right thing. And I'm lucky that for some reason in my brain, I never thought it was fair for someone else to hurt when I was hurting.
Right.
But like I kind of sympathize with them, because you feel like your back's against the wall, you know?
Right.
Like when everyone's making fun of you and like you feel like there's no way out. And like I really did like how in this book, like you can feel her pain. Like she is vocalizing, and you're hearing her thoughts about like, y'all made fun of me and I can't believe you did this. Like even when she's talking to Sue Snell at the very end, and she's like, why did you do this? The part that I found very emotional was that like Carrie's mind inside of Sue Snell's mind is like, why didn't you just talk to me? And that's like verbatim some shit we said in the last episode. It's like, why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you just come? And like that was her last thought. And I think that's why she didn't kill her. It was because like if she would have just told her that this was her plan, if she would have just came to her and been like, look, I want you to have a good prom because we fucked up your whole high school experience.
Right.
It would have changed everything, and none of this would have happened. And like, I don't know, I just think that's like a cool moment that didn't really have to be in the story.
And there's that moment like when this whole thing happens, like right after the blood, and Carrie's like walking out, and after she runs out and stuff, and I think it's after the sprinklers have come on, but she's basically like, just like, she runs out and she trips and falls and she's crying, and then she's talking about how she's gonna go home to her mom or her mama, and and she's just gonna be like, oh man, you were right. But she has this like thought like, well, hold on, because if I go home, like my mom's just gonna tell me like, yep, I was right, she's like basically sees her life unfolds, like what her future could be. Like now she's just stuck in the house with her mom. Like everything is going to be her mom. Like high school's almost over, bitch. Like she's thinking about like, I could just ride out the rest of the school year, but then basically what's after that? What is my life? And it's almost like she thinks of that and is like, no, like that's not how I want my life to go. And instead I'm going to kill everybody. And it's like, it's of course it's like not her thinking like, I'm going to kill everybody, but it's like, no, like, I want these people to hurt. These people who have hurt me, I'm not just going to go home, run away with, like a dog with its tail between its legs. Like, I'm not going to just do that. Like, I'm going to fight back in this moment. This is going to be my moment to stand up to everybody. But it breaks her. All this has boiled up to this moment.
Yeah.
And of course, she doesn't know this information from Sue, so she just thinks everyone has set her up. This is just the last joke. Before we get this part from Carrie, we get one of the other girls at the prom who actually lived, where she's talking about how like even the laughing almost just came out of like pure awkwardness. It was just like nobody knew what to do, because mind you, they're kids. Carrie is, taking this as one way, and it's understandable why she would, because she's been the butt of everybody's joke all her fucking life, right? It sucks. It just sucks, because all these people died, and they didn't really have to. Well, her mom, I don't really feel anything about that, but all these kids didn't have to die. Just random people in the town did not have to go out like this. I do want to eventually talk about her mother's death, because I think that scene to me was ass, but I guess before we get there, it just didn't have to happen,
Yeah, I guess before we get there, the one death that like I always find so interesting is Tommy's death, who is her prom king. Like he just gets killed by the bucket. And like
that's so insane.
Bloop, done.
And my thing is, Carrie barely gives him another thought. It's like at first she's thinking like, oh shit, Tommy, but then like she barely gives him a second thought after that.
See, in my rewrite imagination film version, like he gets hit by the bucket, right, and then he topples over or whatever. And that's her, like, instead of her, like, just immediately, like, I guess in the book she, like, runs away, like you were saying, she runs out and then closes everything down and starts killing people. But I want to say in the movies she immediately goes into killing spree. Like, she gets the blood on her and then just starts killing everybody or whatever.
Okay.
Like, face to face. What I would do would be more like, she is crying because Tommy's dead and, like, freaking out, like, you know, trying to do CPR, you know,
something.
like, why is Tommy dead? And then, you know, like, we've already got a little hint. And this is, like, in my version, I would amplify this by, like, 1,000. Like, the whole idea of, like, everyone hears her name when they're around her, like, in a radius. Like, I would amplify the idea of, like, Tommy's dead, and everyone would be feeling that, and everyone would start crying. Like, unintentionally crying, and start feeling like they're, like, that, you know, that sense of doom when, like, something bad's happening to someone you care about or love, and you're like, oh my god, what do I fucking do? Like, everyone would start feeling that and start shutting down because she is shutting down. And then when she realizes he's dead, that's when shit starts happening. And then, like, the water hoses start cutting on. And it's not a logical thought. Like, I would change it to where she's not wanting to do this. It's just, like, emotions.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, like, and I would have things, like, crumbling and people, like, fucking exploding. Like, you know, like, it's just, like, it's just raw. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And just because she has this, and I would almost put the, like, telekinesis as almost like a disability. Like, you know, like, there's people who can't handle emotions and they have, like, Tourette's or whatever, and there's just, like, outbursts of words or ideas. And I would, like, probably make her telekinetic power more like that, like, where it's uncontrolled and, like, she doesn't know what's happening. Like, a fucking chair swings around and hits someone on the head, but she didn't choose for that to happen. It's just she is, like, in this state,
and this
of,
shit
like,
is just setting her off more because she's like, what the fuck? Now she feels out of control. Like, and see, I feel like the way that you're describing, like, how you would have made changes and how you would have done it is how I thought this was going to go. That is how I thought this scene was. Because I thought this was going to be a moment where Carrie kind of loses control. And I know that Stephen King has had her, like, flexing her abilities this entire time. She's been learning more and more about him. But I did not know that this scene or this whole sequence was going to be so intentional. Everything that Carrie does is an intentional thought process. Like, she is, even
closing
though
doors.
It's like you would think that she would be so emotional in this moment that just everything would just be happening just, like, randomly. But I mean, she has the thought process to close all the doors, and even the way that he describes how her powers work, where she has to mentally visualize everything. That takes work. Like, you have to be rational and thought to be like, okay, I have to think about where all these doors are in this building, and I have to keep them closed. And then I have to think about how these pipes run throughout the building. Okay, I'm turning this water on. Okay, and now I got to think about how these cables are. I got to bust these cables and put them in the water. I got to think, and then she's walking away, but she's leaving the doors closed. So she's still in the back of her mind thinking about leaving these doors closed. Then she decides, actually, it makes sense because I'm thinking the firefighters are going to come try to put this fire out. I'm going to go open up all of the fucking fire hydrants so that there's no water. Like, every step she makes, every choice is so intentional, and I guess that's what makes it more evil, because it's not just like, oh shit, I ran out of here, people are, like, dying around me. And even I know that first electrocution, that first boy that gets electrocuted after he's, like, checking on Tommy, that wasn't her. It just happened, and that made her think, like, oh, like, I hadn't even considered the electricity with the water. And then she's like, let me break the cable, and does this stuff, right? But then after that, everything is just so intentionally evil, and her whole, like, goal is just to cause everybody else pain. And she's making it harder because it's not enough for the kids to just be electrocuted in the water. It's not enough for the school to just blow up and be on fire. She wants everyone to stay in there and burn. And then she doesn't want any any fire set anywhere else in this town to be able to be put out, because she's gonna make sure all the water's gone. And then all these people who are running out of their houses, basically just confused, trying to figure out what's going on, probably parents trying to go look at why the school has blown up, their kids are at prom. I'm gonna fucking, you know, have the cables come down and start electrocuting and burning people. I mean, just like everything is just meant to cause pain. And that is something that surprised me, because I definitely thought this was going to be more, not necessarily unintentional, because maybe some of it, you know, if she's in pain and she wants others to hurt, but not necessarily her thought process, like, well, I'm going to do this and this is my next step and this is what I'm going to do after. Just more like shit's happening around her and we all know it's because of her. We all know that she's having this like emotional outburst and shit's just happening. Like, that's how I thought it was. It ain't like that at all. Like, she is diabolical in this in this whole sequence.
Yeah, very conscious of the act, and that's the one thing I think I would change. Would be that element. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's called Logan. It's like the last Wolverine movie. Did you watch that? But there's a scene where, you know, the old guy, his name is like Professor Xavier, and he's like, he has mental powers or whatever. And Wolverine, they're in a hotel, and he starts having a stroke. And like everyone in Las Vegas is like having
like,
a stroke
I have
at the same
seen
time.
It, but again,
and then Wolverine is like going up to the hotel and like killing all these people who were trying to kill the professor, and that's why he's having a stroke, because he's having like anxiety about being killed. You remember that scene at all?
It's like it does ring a bell, but not like I can't vividly remember.
Well, if anyone else knows about that, that's what I would imagine this scene to go down as. Like, she is just having an absolute emotional breakdown, panic attack. And then again, like we've gotten hints that when she's feeling something, other people feel it as well. Like whether it's her name or like how Tommy feels like a headache or whatever when he asks her out. Like, I would have that. And like everything is breaking. You know, like wires are coming unplugged. And then, like, other things are coming unplugged. You know, like, the walls are collapsing. Like, it's almost like an earthquake. That's what I imagine in, like, my version. There's just an earthquake in the whole town in, like, a 10-mile radius. The earth is just shaking because she is shaking, like, emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's what's killing people. But it's not, like, how you were saying. In this version, in the book, it is very evil. And it's very, like, she's deciding to do these things and, like, oh, I hope they die. And like, I just remember like reading or listening to this one part where like this guy has his like fingers in the middle of the door of the school while he's like running out.
Oh my gosh, yes,
and that shit gets just cut off. And I'm like, damn, this shit's bloody. And I was like, damn, I forgot how hardcore Stephen King gets. And like this part reminded me of the pig sequence, because like he goes hard. He does not like when he kills some people. He goes hard. And like the other part that I want to bring up that you kind of mentioned was like, there's a lady who's getting investigated for whatever fucking court case shit. And like she goes out walking with her like neighbor, and they're like holding hands, like cool, like, you know, like kindergarten kids. I think he even describes it like that, like two kindergarten kids.
Yeah, he does.
And they're walking down like, what's going on? The school's on fire. And like they're just curious people trying to help.
Yeah.
And then like a fucking electrical cable goes down, and fucking the neighbor lady gets electrocuted, and like he even explains how she smells. When she burns alive to a crisp. And I'm like, damn, that's fucked up. And this is just like your normal average age, like fucking 40-year-old lady just being burnt alive in front of this other lady. And then like we go into this whole thing about how this the lady who survives is like traumatized, and it's like, I just need to take a big leap. And even when she jumps, she's like, I could probably die, you know, like you don't know what's gonna happen. And then she makes it out or whatever and runs and all this kind of stuff. But like so many people died like that, like they just went outside to like how you were saying, like what the fuck's going on,
and just burnt up. The shit is crazy. It's crazy. And you're right, like, so that part, that's why I'm like, okay, this felt very much so Stephen King. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like this was the horror part of it, right? And I'm like, okay, this is now making sense to me, because this book didn't have a lot. It really didn't have any horror. It had, like, there was a lot going on, but all the horror was saved until this last sequence here of, like, once everything pops off. But boy, did he come with it at that point, because, I mean, yes, like, that neighbor, like him describing that neighbor, that was like, bitch, I feel like I've smelled. She was talking about, oh, the sweet smell of pork and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God.
Dude,
like,
I was like, I don't want to eat barbecue anymore.
Right. Like, and every death, honestly, like every death he explained it, even other like random people whose names we don't know. We just know that these people were getting electrocuted out on the streets. Like, he describes what they look like when they died. And it's just like, it's crazy. And then I think even that same neighbor, she talks about, like, she's like running down the street, or once she's like trying to be calm, because she realizes if she's like bringing attention to herself by running, she's going to get killed too, just like everybody else. So she's like, I have to stay level-headed. I have to keep my head. This is the only way I'm going to get out of it. So she's basically just walking through this mayhem. Like, she's the calm, like the calm walking through this storm. And it's just crazy, because I think she even like talks about another like person who she sees on the ground who's been electrocuted. She's like, there was like basically nothing but a puddle left. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what does that even mean? Like, burnt so bad? And she says, like, someone she noticed was so burnt up on the ground, even their wedding ring had turned black. And I'm like, damn, like, this person was burnt the fuck. Like, how, like, you were burnt bad as shit. Like, and so I don't know. So all of this was just so horrific.
Yeah.
But then to bring it back around, because I want to talk about it, all of this horror, right? And then we finally get to the scene where Carrie and her mom are in the room together. Where was the horror then? Where was the horror?
If I can pause you for a second, because I got one last thing to say about this horror.
Okay, all right.
Because, all right, I want to just say this, because I've always thought, and like, you were born in California. Were you born in California?
Well, I was born in Ohio, but grew up in California.
Okay, I was born in California, grew up in Alabama.
Okay.
But I even spent a couple years in California doing my military training and shit or whatever in Travis Air Force Base. I always thought like California fires were like a non-issue. And this scene, reading it again, I remembered an article that I read about a California fire, and this was around the Sacramento area where Travis Air Force Base is.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was like fascinating. Like, I remember when I read it, I felt like my blood pumping, and like this whole scene about the electrocution reminded me of that. There was this article written by this reporter about this lady's experience of a California fire, and like I never understood, like, it's a fire, just go, just leave, you know, like what, like just you have a heads up, right?
Like,
but
it's a fire, right?
You know, like I don't live in California currently. I have never experienced a fire, so like this is just my ignorance, and I just wanted to bring it up because I think a lot of people, you know, they hear California fire and they're like fucking idiots or whatever the fuck.
Right.
But this story and this article was so fucking hardcore. So this lady was in her townhome or apartment or house or whatever the fuck. I imagine it was a very slim house. And she was, her husband was in the bathroom, like doing whatever, taking a shit or pissing, whatever the fuck. They had a dog. And this lady was in the kitchen and like hearing about the fire. And the fire had spread to their town, and she started panicking. And she was like, hey, we need to get out. We need to get out. Like, start loading shit. Husband comes out, starts packing their bags and shit. And, you know, the dog's freaking out. The dog jumps out the window, and, like, supposedly this is like a 2-3-story apartment. The dog jumps out, and they're fully panicking. Like, our fucking dog just jumped out. We need to go get the dog. Husband starts going out, and when he opens the door, there's already a fire.
Oh, fuck.
In their building. They didn't even know about. And they had to like fucking jump out of the same window the dog jumped out. And then something happened, like, and this fire is like literally in the town. And like just reading this account of this lady like explaining this event, like she said like she couldn't see anything. The husband, like she didn't even know where her husband went. Like they landed on the ground or whatever. The husband started screaming and she couldn't see because the fire was so hot. Like you can't, like she was saying, like you can't even think. Like it was just like your brain is on autopilot because the heat is so intense.
Right.
And the smoke and like I'm sure you've been around like campfires and shit. Like that shit, like when that shit gets in your eyes, you can't really see.
Yeah.
And she was saying like she was blind and she kept calling out her husband's name and the dog's name. Neither of them would come to her. And then she was just running aimlessly. And then she eventually got to a truck full of people, like just full of random ass fucking people. And they're all screaming like, get on the truck, get on the truck, get on the truck. She got on the truck and she's screaming like, where's my husband? Where's my husband? Where's my dog? Where's my husband? And they're driving off. And then she remembers like the truck, you hear these like gunshot sounds. And it was the tires popping because of the heat of the truck. And then everyone was like, get out of the truck, get out of the truck. We gotta keep running. And then she remembers running down the road with all these random people. She couldn't even see anybody. She just remembers she was like, everything was black. She just remembers holding on to someone's hand that was in front of her. And then she remembers this person was like, our shoes are getting stuck on the road because their shoes started melting. And it was just like this crazy story. And I remember reading it. Like I read it all the way to the end in like one sitting. And I was like, oh my God. Like I never, like, I don't know. My ignorant mind was like, California fire, just get the fuck out. Like, you know, what are you doing? But like the level of like how that shit spreads because California has like 40 mile per hour winds, like just constantly or whatever the fuck. Like the shit can spread faster than you can react. And like this scene reminds me of that article that I read. And like luckily her husband survived. He got into a similar situation where he got into some random person's truck and the dog survived.
Turn up.
Remarkably. But the dog was burned in multiple areas or whatever. But they all survived. But it was just like crazy how like when you're in this moment of like survival, like you don't like you just are in like you're in freak out autopilot. Like I just need to like live kind of mode. And it just sounds so scary. And it sounds like, damn, like you think about shit like this, you know, like when you watch a scary movie, like what would I do in a zombie apocalypse? But like when you're in the thick of it, it's like, I don't know, like I don't want to ever go through it. And it's just like so traumatizing to even think about. And like, that's what I imagine this like little electrocution segment, like reading it now after have read that article about that California fighter, I was like, damn, like this lady literally survived. And like there's also a guilt that comes with that.
Oh, for sure.
Know? Like there's a huge guilt of surviving these kind of incidents. Like that, I know that's a thing that happens with like school shooter kids and like parents and all that kind of shit. Like why did we live, you know? And like you feel that internal guilt. And that's like a whole other aspect of the story that like I don't know, that he kind of digs into just by like having them recount their stories and shit. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because anyone who talks shits about California fires, like, read that fucking article.
That's crazy. I gotta look for that shit. I kind of want to read it.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. And I was like, God damn. Like, I would, I mean, first of all, I would move out of California. But second of all, like, I would not do well in that situation.
Yeah, no, I couldn't either. Ooh, wow, I can't imagine that.
But yeah, let's talk about Carrie's mother, because you brought it up. So you didn't like that scene. I feel you. I feel you, because like it's weird because like Carrie's mom is like the central like evil protagonist of this, and I think she's like the weakest character.
Yeah.
And like I remember when we got back, she has like the knife and she's talking about all this shit, and she's like saying like she actually digs into the backstory that I forgot about her being
she
raped.
does. Yeah, she does talk about the rape and stuff like that in this scene. So,
and it was weird. Her character is the only character that I feel is like, I don't want to say she's fake, because I would unfortunately say there's probably a million other women who have had that experience or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think the way Stephen King wrote her was a little over the top.
Yeah, I agree. She was an extra ass character, but also a nothing ass character at the same time, right? Like, so it was very weird, very weird. Yeah. But to get into it, right? All right, this was okay. All right, again, we talked about all of the just like straight horror with Carrie like killing people that she didn't even know. Literally people who had no like they played no part in her story, in her life. She probably didn't know their name. They probably didn't know her name, other than the fact that now they're like her and her telekinetic abilities are like giving everybody like the same feeling. So they're all like, oh, Carrie White. But we get to her mom, who I feel should have had the worst, most gruesome death overall. And her shit is peaceful as fuck. Mind you, she stabs Carrie. She literally stabs Carrie. And Carrie still just like ever so gently stops her heart. I was like, bitch, what? Bitch, what?
I did not remember that. And when I read it, I was like, what is going on? What is it? And then she's like, just slower, mama.
Yeah,
your heart's
like
gonna get slower, mama.
Like,
mama,
what?
Mama,
bro, that made me so mad. Oh my god,
she should have like fucking exploded.
I mean,
like, just
she should have
pop
literally,
her like a gusher.
Like her head just pops the fuck up. Something. Oh my god, like so much more could have happened there. But I feel like that goes back into what we were talking about. Like I think that was last episode, or maybe that was the episode before when we were talking about mommy issues. And like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter like how fucked up your relationship with your mom was, you're probably still going to have love for that person. You're still going to like wish you had a relationship, and there's probably still going to be some sort of a soft spot. And that was like highlighted like hell in this fucking scene, because Carrie gave her the least, well, I mean, I feel like even Tommy's death was worse, and because his was so just like, what? I mean, he just got like he literally died from getting hit on the head with a bucket. So that
that shit hurt. Like your heart rate slowing down, like that'd feel like going to sleep.
Yeah,
I imagine. Like it would just be like your body would go numb.
Yeah,
because there's not enough blood pumping, and then you would just pass out.
She still had the opportunity to talk and say her stupid ass prayer. She literally again stabbed Carrie, and Carrie just stopped her heart. I mean, what the fuck, bitch?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think in my version, the mom character would be way more like fucking like superhero vengeful type shit, you know, like I'm gonna fucking kill you, Carrie, because you fucking killed the whole town or some shit.
I thought there was gonna be a fight scene, right? Because like I knew like her mom had the knife, and then when Carrie's there and she's like, Mama, I came to kill you, or I think maybe the mom says it, like I don't know who said it. Somebody was like, I came to kill you and you're already here to kill me, so like what's it gonna be? I thought we were gonna have some fucking like duel. Like I thought the mom was gonna come after her, and Carrie's gonna be slinging her up on walls and shit, and then fucking like breaks her hands, and then like fucking crushes all her bones, and then her body just like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like Carrie took out all her anger on literally nobody, like other people who were nobody to her, who never talked to her, never knew of her, and then her mom, who literally in this moment, we already knew, but in this moment says that she tried to kill, or she had intentions of killing Carrie at least 2 other times before this moment, right? And obviously has shit on Carrie all her life. She gets just her heart stopped.
Yeah.
What?
So this is how I would do that scene, because like as a writer, like I love the idea of like opposites. And I think what would be the perfect emotional opposite of the scene is, you know, Carrie enters the house, the mom is there with the knife, right? And Carrie is like, Mama, don't attack me. And then the mom rushes Carrie with the knife, and then like as the knife is in her hand, you know, she does the stabbing motion and it stops.
Yeah.
And then her hand, like the knife almost like reverses. Like, you know, like you can hold a knife like pointing outwards, and then you can hold the knife like pointing downwards where you're gonna like stab downward or whatever. So the knife like changes in her hands and stabs downward. and then it stabs herself. And then it comes back out. And then Carrie's like, Mama, don't stab me again, because it'll stab you.
Yeah.
And then that's when the mom is like, I have to kill you.
Yeah.
So she stabs again, but what that causes is her stabbing herself. And then she pulls out, and then she's like, I have to kill you, Carrie. And then Carrie says, Mama, please don't. And then she stabs again, but it just stabs back into her. Yeah. So it's like your action causes your consequence. And I think that would be a beautiful scene of like the mom wanting to kill Carrie, but instead killing herself.
Yeah. Because
that's the thing she could never do. Like in a way, Carrie is like the evil sin of what she sees as herself. Like she always wanted to kill Carrie. She always wanted an abortion. She never wanted to be all these evil things that she portrays onto Carrie that are just herself. And I think that would be like a beautiful metaphor. Like, you trying to kill me is you killing yourself, because you don't have the strength to be a mother. You don't have the strength to accept me. You don't have the strength to protect me. You don't have the strength to educate me or teach me anything. And like, I think you could have turned that sequence into her killing herself, as that's her consequence. That's what you have spawned into the world, is a weak person, because you were too weak to actually be a parent, to like actually be a leader, to actually be an educator, like person that cares about other people. And like, I think that would have been beautiful. And like her stabbing herself like nonstop, and it would have been bloody and gruesome and gross and like, you know, the Stephen King quality. But then like at the end, like the last final stab or whatever, she was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And then she stabs out and maybe stabs her neck. And then it's done. And then like Carrie never touched her.
Yeah.
And she told her from the get-go, don't stab, Mama, because it's going to hurt you. And that would have been, I think in my like version, that would have been the perfect metaphor. It's like, you're killing yourself by trying to kill me, because I am the image of what you could never be. You know, and I think that's like a lot of fault of like parents and daughters and sons and fathers or whatever. You know, it's always like, I don't know, it's like a weird thing that I've thought about a lot lately, is like, I would probably feel the same thing if I had kids, you know, like this, like I need to make sure this kid is better than me.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make sure he has a fucking life, and he has a house, and he has all this shit, you know, like there's that pressure of like, damn, like I don't want to be a father to a fuck up kid because I was a fuck up kid, you know, like that kind of pressure. And I think that would have perfectly encapsulated that, where, you know, maybe at the end she says something that's like, I never had the strength to change. And, you know, like, I don't know, that's just like my daydream version, is like her essentially like killing herself.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly what she's trying to do.
Yeah. And that scene would have been a lot better for me, because this just, again, it just did not go the way I thought. And it's almost like, okay, it's like Carrie came in like, well, I came here to kill you, Mom, and you're sitting here waiting to kill me. And so, like, what's really about to be here? Like, I already know I'm powerful, so, like, what's really going on? Like, what's about to happen? And then it's like, Carrie, like, drops to her knees and says whatever she says to her mom, and then her mom stabs her in the shoulder. And I'm like, I was like, what? Like, I feel like in that moment, it could have been like what you said. It's like, I almost thought like, okay, Carrie was going to see that her mom was about to stab her and she was going to stop it. And I thought she was going to have her mom stab herself as well. Like, I truly thought this. And I feel like that could have happened, even if he wanted to write it how he did. It still could have happened how you said it. In that moment, it could have been like, bitch, you're not going to stab me. But she still allowed her to do this. She gets stabbed. And then just, I mean, wow, I don't know. I just thought the scene could have been so much more, because if anybody wronged Carrie, a lot of people wronged Carrie. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's definitely the kids at school, and it wasn't every kid that died, but, you know, there's kids at school that wronged her and probably wronged her their whole, like, school, like, career. But her mom had to have been the worst of the worst as far as like wrongdoings and getting Carrie to this point. And it was just, I don't know, it just felt so blah. And like I said, I don't know if maybe that was intentional, like, okay, well, it was still her mom, and so at the end of the day, this is how she felt about her mom. But it just felt so blah, and it could have been so much more powerful. And the way you said it was way more powerful. Like, that would have been a scene where I would have been like, okay, like, that's what I thought would happen. It wasn't even bloody. I mean, all this other stuff, people burning to a crisp and burning into a puddle and
innocent people.
Like literally and like getting electrocuted and fucking like all this stuff that happened. And then there's not even a bloody scene with the mom. Like it's literally just, I stopped her heart. Why couldn't you just stop everyone else's heart then? Shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Why'd everyone else have to suffer and not her?
Yeah. I think this is like, I don't know. I know Stephen King has like I don't want to say like a repulsion, but I know he is a critic of religion. Like that is a theme that is in all his books. And he's not like a religious person. And I don't know his upbringing or whatever, but I think a lot of people don't fancy religion in a positive way. And I think he tied this mother character to religion too strongly. And that's like in the past episode, you know, we talked about like I would, you know, have the religion there, but it would be more about the trauma. Like that's what fucked her up. It's not the religion that fucked her up, it's the trauma. And I think any person who is crazily religious has a trauma.
It's gotta
be. Most people,
because why else are you like holding on to this thing like that? Yeah.
Because you need something external to make you feel okay. And I think that's with anything and everything. It could be religion, it could be weapons, it could be fucking news, it could be whatever. Everyone who has some shit, you have some other shit that makes you feel human and makes you feel okay. And I think I think this is just a sign of his weak writing, is that he just saw her as a villain. But again, like I think most people, even if they do villainous crazy acts, they are still in pain. And I think that's the one aspect that he forgot to point out in this. And I think that's what would be so powerful, is like having like I kind of said, like Carrie begging her mom, like, stop, like just stop, I don't want to kill you, stop. And then her just continually stabbing herself. And then just Carrie being like, why, mama? You know, like, I don't know. And in my mind, that would be such an emotional scene of like, just stop being the way you are. And like, I can imagine myself saying that to my dad. And like, my dad was not the greatest dad at all. And my mom was not the greatest mom at all. And I've never done this, but I can imagine myself saying, just why can't you just see me as a person? Why do I have to be what you want me to be? And I think that scene, you could rewrite it into that idea and that message of like, can we not just be two different people? And can you not just love me for who I am, and I can help you and you can help me, and we can live and then coexist and like support each other and like actually be human? But there's so much it's just like human nature. It's like there's some people who just can't. They literally can't. Like, I know for a fact my dad could never get over that. You know, I know my mom could never get over that. I know, like, siblings that could not get over that. Like, no, you're my brother, and, like, all this, you know, whatever the fuck bullshit. I'm like, no, dude, like, we could be happy. We could. We really could. We could really figure this shit out. But there's something in, like, whether it's society or our upbringing or masculinity or femininity or whatever the fuck, bullshit shit that does not matter puts us in these boxes to where we have to perform, we have to act the way we are expected. And I think that fucks a lot of people up. And like I think the scene could have been way stronger because of that. And it's not. It's just she just fucking gets her heart stopped. And then Carrie's like, whatever bullshit. Like I agree 100% though. This is like, out of all the deaths, this is like a 0 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it
sucks.
It's fucking
stupid.
It just sucks because, exactly. It's like, okay, on the one end, it could have been so much more emotional and powerful, and that would have made it a better death. And it didn't even necessarily have to be gruesome, but it could have been more emotional and more powerful, and I would have been like, okay, you know what? That makes sense. Considering that this is a mother-daughter relationship, that makes sense. It didn't even have to be her head exploded. But then we didn't get that, and then additionally, this is a whole supposed to be a horror type novel, and we didn't even get the horror. It's like, damn. So I just felt like I don't know, underwhelmed, I guess, about the entire thing, because it would have been even better just to fucking be like, okay, this woman is human and she is fucked up. Like, I mean, she can't even stop to the point where she realizes this is about to cost her her life. She can't even stop it. Like, it's just that ingrained in her. She's gonna do it. Like, we didn't even get that. So I'm just like, well, what was the point? It's almost like at this point, he could have left the mom alive. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't even have to have her die. It literally did nothing except that Carrie going home to her mom is what essentially caused her death, because she gets stabbed and then in the shoulder and then ends up dying as a result of this injury. So I'm like, what? Like, so I don't know. That was just wild.
And then she feels bad about it.
Yeah.
That's the part that really bothered me. Like, when she meets Sue Snell, she's like, Mama, I can't believe I killed Mama. And this part I like. I like how this was written, where Sue Snell is connected, and, you know, they go through all the thoughts that we talked about earlier. But there's a part at the very end where Carrie is dying. And this is something that, like, I have I'm afraid of dying. Like, I think about this all the fucking, like, I can't sleep at night because I think about this kind of shit. And then she's like dying, and she's like, oh my God, I'm about to die. And like, I'm just going to cease to exist and all this kind of shit and like all these feelings or whatever the fuck. And then she's thinking about Mama, I'm sorry. Mama, I can't believe Mama. And at that point, like, listening to it, I was like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, this is some cheesy ass writing for a death that didn't matter, for a character that was written way too evilly in a book that is legit, but it's like that whole part, like, I was like, oh my God, Steven, stop.
Yeah, it's like he tried to do something without, it's like, yeah, exactly, like he tried to make the mom just an evil character. And okay, like, we got that, but then if she's just gonna be an evil character, then that's just what she should be. I don't want to hear about Carrie crying about her fucking mom dying at the end. Then, like, if you wanted us to feel some type of way about that, then give the mom that, like, human, you know, like, those humanistic, like, characteristics. And we didn't get that at all. Like, everything you said, if you had written this story, if you had written those scenes differently, everything that, if you would have done that, if he would have done it how you said, I would have felt bad at the end. Like, there would have been that, like, oh, well, this is still just a human being, and I can understand, even though I wouldn't be as crazy as the mom was, I can understand how she got there, because she's a human and shit happened to her in her life, and it all added up to this, where she's just inflicting the same pain that she's felt onto her child. And unfortunately, that's such a real thing that happens, that this would have just been realistic. It would have been like, okay, it's a little inflated because maybe the mom is like on this hyper like religious like thing or whatever, to the point where she's about to kill her daughter a couple times, but it still would have made her feel like more of a human, a person, where I could feel some sort of empathy. And not just for the mom, but also for the relationship between a mother and a daughter that Carrie and her mother are supposed to have. Like, in this moment, in this death moment, like with Carrie dying, it should have been like, I feel that, like, just natural, like, you're going to be thinking like, where's my mom? Like, I'm in a mode of crisis, right? Like, I'm on my deathbed, something's happening, I'm dying, and the first thing I'm thinking is like, where's my mom to come save me, right? Or like, shit. But I didn't feel that. Like, I didn't think it was necessary, because their relationship meant nothing to me. It didn't feel like a relationship between a mother and a daughter. It just felt like this crazy bitch, like, who we sometimes see, and we like sometimes get an understanding that she's super religious and locks Carrie like in her in the closet. It's almost like fucking Harry Potter. Like, if there was a scene in Harry Potter where his uncle and his aunt are dying, or he killed his uncle and his aunt or something, and then like at the end Harry Potter's dying and now he's thinking about his uncle, I'd be like, bitch, why are you thinking about your fucking uncle? He sucked ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would not be like, oh, I understand that just like troubled relationship with your mom. No, because I have a troubled relationship relationship with my mom, and if he had written it better, that would have been a heartfelt moment for me, because I know that if I were on my deathbed, I would be thinking about my mom. Like, I've always thought about this. Like, if something happened, I know I would be thinking about, like, where's my mom? She needs to come save me, because that's just like, I just feel like that's just such a natural human thought process. Like, I know I would be thinking that, but it doesn't make sense to me for Carrie to be thinking that. Like, her relationship doesn't seem like that to me.
Yeah. And I may be wrong, because, you know, I don't think either me or you have had the level of horrible mother that Carrie's mom is.
Correct.
But there are moments in my life where my mom and me had a good connection, where my father and me had good connections, where my siblings and me have good connections. Even the people that bullied me in school, we've had good connection. And I think that is like something, like, everyone, like, I don't know, this is like too broad of a statement, but I think even like the worst mom, like, there is still at least one moment where a kid and a mother or a kid and a father connect.
Yep.
Because I would argue it's impossible for someone to absolutely hate someone 100%. Like, I think there has to at least be one moment where you connect with that person. Yeah. And I think that is like something that this book is lacking. Like, there's not a single moment of Carrie's mom being an actual person.
Nothing.
Like a human being.
Nothing.
I think all human beings are human beings.
Yeah.
Even at their worst element, like, there is at least one little thing. Like there's at least like a smile one day.
Right. No, I agree.
Like, no one is truly at that level of despicableness. Even like serial killers have had good days with other people.
Yeah.
And they're even compassionate, and like, there's even serial killers that people say, like, he was such a nice guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was like my best friend at work.
Right.
I can't believe he did that. We talked
serial killers
all
who've
day
been
at
married,
work.
who have kids, who and
yeah,
you're like,
and like, he was a perfect husband.
Yeah.
He was a perfect father. And like, I think that is like the dynamic that Stephen King is missing, is like, humans are complex.
Yeah.
We are fucking complex as shit.
Yeah.
We can be one person with one person, and then be an entirely different person with other people.
Yeah.
And then also be multiple people within the same person.
Yeah.
You know, like, I can be all kinds of fathers with my kid.
Yeah. Yep.
And the majority of those could be shitty, but there could be one where that kid looks up to me and he thinks, like, that is the coolest fucking dad
literally
of all time.
Yep.
And I think that is an element. And then also, as a kid, even the shittiest mom, it's still your mom.
Yep.
You know, there's still like an awe, like, oh my God, that's my mom.
Yep.
My mom is so fucking, like, she's my mom. You know, like, there's that, like, I feel like we never got that scene of like Carrie looking up to her mom, like, yeah, my mom is so religious. She's a god.
Something,
you know, like,
right. There was nothing. There was no type of like, and because I feel like even if you had that moment only when you were a kid, right? Because kids are like so like optimistic and just like ignorant of all the bad things in the world, which is a good thing, right? Like, I want kids to be like that. But in those moments, and usually that's probably when you're having the majority of these, like, yeah, I'm in awe. Like, that's my mom. It doesn't matter what your mom is doing. Especially, it doesn't matter what your mom is doing then, because you rely on this person. Like, that's your mom, that's your dad, that's your parent, whatever. That's your caretaker. Yeah. And then as you get older, that's when you start to recognize these, like, bad patterns, these toxic traits that you're like, this is not working out for me. But you've already built this like relationship with this person. And my mom and I have my mommy issues, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely been points through my life where we had an okay, a goodish relationship. And then there's been times where she's like literally blocked me and we haven't talked at all, you know? So like, there's that up and down, there's that high and low, but there's still that foundation of this is my mom. And yes, at some time, the times were good, you know? And so it would make sense to me why, like, I would have that type of still just like natural, like instinctive, where's my mom, something bad is happening type shit. Whereas with Carrie, it's not making sense to me, and it's not pulling on any heartstrings. It's not like, normally I'm such a sucker for like a mother-daughter thing or whatever, or just a child and their mother. Like, that always gets me, which is why that movie, that Everything Everywhere All at Once movie, that really that shit got me. But anyway,
Oh,
like, I bought that movie and I just keep watching it. But
yo, okay, we need a review. I reviewed it for my
please.
film podcast, but like, let's do a re-review.
Like, please.
shit.
I keep rewatching that movie because I think it just hits me in my feels with the whole, like, I mean, I had no idea what the movie was going into it, but then it turns
Yeah.
out it's all about fucking mommy-daughter issues. And so anyways,
yeah.
and Stephen King doesn't do that here. Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
build that foundation, and it's not like I
Yeah.
needed to have it for 3/4 of the book to get here. It could have been any one moment. It could have been any small moment of her mother being a mother, and like me understanding
Yeah.
why Carrie has this relationship, because me just having my own mommy issues doesn't help me understand the relationship at all.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like
Yeah.
her mother's not a mother.
Yeah.
She's just not.
She's a villain.
Yeah, she's just
a
a villain. And it's like, well, then I don't feel bad about her dying. I wanted her to die a horrible death. And I'm confused when Carrie is feeling bad about it and crying out for her mother on her own deathbed. It doesn't make sense
Yep.
to me, because if she's the villain, then
not.
she's just the villain. To the point where Carrie had it in her mind, I'm going home to kill my mother. It wasn't even like I'm going home to be comforted by my mother because I've just done all this crazy shit. I need to go home to something familiar. I want my mother to make me feel better, and I come home and I'm being berated by her, and now she's trying to kill me, and fuck, I gotta kill my mom too. That would have made more sense, but it wasn't that. It was just like, well, we're both here to kill each other, so bitch, what's going on? Who's gonna kill who?
What's up?
Right,
What's up?
like come at me, bro. And like, that's not at all, that felt like just a villain thing. Like, oh well, in
Yeah.
the same way that basically Carrie sought out like Chris and Billy, like in the same way that she's like, I'm gonna go here and kill these bitches. That's how it felt with the mom. And like, it should have just been left at that. For all I mean, you know, like, it should have just been like, well, she killed her mom and moving on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. One last thing I want to say about this, because listening to you talk reminded me of this thing. When I was in, I want to say it was elementary school, maybe it was middle school, there was this like preppy ass fucking kid. I remember I wanted to like beat the shit out of him. He was like a fucking asshole piece of shit. I don't know why when you were talking it reminded me of this, but this kid was like, he was just like talking shit, and he was like, you want to know when a kid is poor? Like, you want to know when you know someone's poor and they can't afford shit and they're just like pieces of shit. And he was just like talking all this shit. And he was talking to like me and like all these other kids. And he was like, the way you know a kid is poor is when they wear the same jacket to school every day. And I remember I looked down at my jacket. I had this blue jacket with this like little lion on it. It was like this cute lion. I thought it was the coolest fucking lion of all time. And I wore this jacket every single fucking day. Damn. And I remember feeling so angry and like guilty. And I was like, wait. And like before this moment, I didn't know I was like in a poor family.
Right.
You know, like I didn't, you know, like as a kid, you don't know what the fuck anything is. You don't know that
shit.
Yeah. And I remember going home, asking my brother, are we poor? My brother started laughing. Didn't even answer the question. Went to my mom, are we poor? Started laughing. Didn't even answer the question. I remember like for weeks, I was like, what the fuck?
Damn.
I was born in the wrong fucking family, man. Like, this is not.
He's like, I could have had other jackets.
Yeah, like other kids have multiple jackets. They have multiple pants. They have multiple underwear. They have multiple socks. Like, I literally wore the same jacket, same pants, same socks, same underwear, same shirt every fucking day for like months. And it blew my fucking mind. I remember talking to this one kid who I was cool with on the school bus. Didn't even have a class with him. He was just some fucking random kid on the school bus who would sit by me. And he was like pretty wealthy. Because of course my little trailer was by this fucking $500K house or whatever the fuck. And I was like, hey, are your parents like adopting kids right now? And I literally asked this fucking kid that, and he went home and asked his parents, and his parents came back, and they told him to tell me like they're not accepting they're not accepting adoptions at the moment. And I remember I got so angry. I was like, fuck your parents, dude.
my
They could totally
gosh.
adopt me. I only need one jacket a season.
Bro, that is hilarious. Oh my, but it's so sad at the same time. It's like so funny and so sad. And
I was
also,
like,
whoever said that to you is fucked up. That kid that's like, oh, you know how you can tell how someone's poor? Fuck that kid, man. Fuck that kid.
oh, shit.
Bro.
Yeah, for some reason, all that shit you said reminded me of that. And I was just like, damn. Oh my
man.
God.
And imagine being those parents and your kids coming home like, hey, this kid on the bus wanted me to ask.
If my best friend, can we adopt him? Oh my God. I just imagine as an adult.
Oh.
I don't know. Like, as an adult, like, if I could afford it and my kid came to me and told me that shit, I'd be like,
hell yeah.
yo, that kid must be fucked up. Like,
Yeah,
like let's help him out.
Literally.
Like, fuck.
Oh, wow. That's like funny in like a sad but funny again way.
Yeah. That's...
Damn, that's crazy.
Oh my God. It's crazy because, like, the school I grew up in, Chelsea, like, there's Greystone. I don't know if anyone's in the Alabama area, they know what Greystone is, but Greystone is like millionaire motherfuckers. And then on the outskirts of that is just trailer park motherfuckers. And I was the trailer park motherfucker, and so it was always weird, you know, coexisting like in that same kind of school, you know, like it's always weird being like, we don't make enough to make, you know, to buy an extra shirt for my kid, and then we make enough to fucking live in the Galleria, you know, like this fucking shopping center, 5 stories tall, whatever the fuck.
Right.
And that was always like a weird thing. Like, I remember growing up, like, those kids won the lottery, and I used to remember like thinking, like, damn, how do I get adopted? You know, like, that was my main thought every day. It's like, how do I get adopted? How can I? What can I do to be adopted by another, like, a white family? Like, that's what I want. I want to get adopted by a white family so I can have an actual life. And, like, that was my main goal in life. Elementary, middle school. That was it. That was like my peak thoughts.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
But yeah, something about what you were saying about Carrie's mom and, like, how she was
just really
you know, not.
yeah,
That for some reason brought me back to those memories, but but I think something that you said before I, you know, throw us way off topic, was the Billy and not Sue. What is her name?
Billy,
Charlie?
Chris.
Yep. Yeah. Chris. That whole interaction we haven't really talked about. Billy basically rapes Chris. in a scene.
Oh my God, yes.
And I was like, that's fucked up.
Yes.
And then he calls her Charlie. Which I thought was interesting and weird and disgusting all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's because Charlie is... I'm not going to say I've never heard of a woman named Charlie, but it's it's a more masculine name than a feminine name. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then... yeah, they have a very abusive relationship after this whole event, and all this shit goes down, and then they get in their car, and they're going to go watch the fires, and they have this whole alibi planned out, and then Carrie totally fucks that up and, like, fucking shoots their car into, like, a fucking pole or some shit. They fucking die.
Yeah.
I guess I was going to ask you about... yeah, I was going to ask you about that whole situation, their characters, their... demise. It was better than Carrie's mom demise.
For sure. Definitely better. So did Carrie know, like, was that confirmation that Carrie knew that they were the ones that dropped the buckets on her, or did that just happen because she just saw them there and she's like, oh yeah, I was just headed here anyway, everybody's dying, so like,
let's go.
Yeah, like, what was that?
Yeah, I think because Billy was driving the car. I remember when he saw Carrie, he like gassed that shit. He was like, I'm gonna fucking run over this bitch. And I think Carrie sensed that and was like, this person's about to try to run over me. Let me, you know, turn the steering wheel to the left, hit a light pole, and fucking kill these motherfuckers. I don't know. I feel like she did not know because we didn't really get a scene of like her going into their heads. She just kills them off the bat.
Right.
I think she just saw them as like danger.
Yeah.
And then
okay.
again, she probably realized like, all right, that's Chris. She's the one that first threw the tampon at me in that bathroom scene. And then this is Billy, who's a notorious douchebag, greasehead. Fuck it. You know, like I think that was her attitude.
Okay.
Now, it would have been cool if she had realized these things.
Yeah, if she knew, I think they would have died much more gruesome deaths. Now, I don't know what it would have been, but I think it definitely would have been much more gruesome because they still, now they didn't die. They died more gruesomely than the mother, for sure. That was definitely a better scene.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I think, I still think that, well, they kind of burned alive. So I'm like, I think, yeah, I mean, Billy, like, got, like, skewered by the steering wheel thing, and then they said that like Chris, like I don't think she went through the windshield, but she like hit the dashboard, and then I guess they just like blew up in the car. I guess that's a gruesome way to go because it probably was more like a burned alive thing. But some of the like electrocution to me seems like more gruesome, but maybe it's just because we got more details about like how these people looked when they were dying and like the smell of their bodies, whereas like Chris and Billy just kind of like it was like the car hit the fucking building or whatever, it went up in flames, and like that's that. So but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst death, but I wish it's like I almost wish she knew who did it to her. Just so I could have seen it a little bit, because they still didn't care. The thing was, after all of that stuff happened, Chris, you could tell she was kind of like having a mental breakdown, but like Billy didn't give two shits the fuck less, even when they were like, oh, it's Carrie and Carrie's doing this stuff. Like they really still didn't care that they were the ones that started this whole thing.
Yeah, in my version, I think she would have, it wouldn't happen in this situation. It would have happened at the school, I think. And I would have had something happen to where, I don't know how this would happen biologically, but I would have her pull the blood out of their body and then it fall on top of them. You know, like a reverse, like, you know, cow blood or whatever, pig blood for a pig or whatever. Like she would do that onto them by draining their blood out and then making it fall on top of them. Because I would have had her realize that they were the ones that planned this, and it was their fault all along.
Yep.
And I think this is kind of like a weak scene because she doesn't realize this. You know, like this whole time she thinks Sue Snell sets her up, and then we get that, you know, final scene that we talked about Sue and like their connection or whatever, realizing she didn't set it up. I think it would have been cool to have her find out who set it up, and it was Chris and Billy. And that would have been a cool, and I would have made this like very extreme. Like, I don't know, maybe make their fucking like bones pop off, or I don't know.
Crush their skulls. I don't know. Like, this is, again, I agree. Like, I feel like the fiery death in the car, like, that's not the best way to go, for sure. I wouldn't want to go like that. But I wish she would have known that this is who did it to her, because I feel like we could have got some awesome, like, gruesome scenes out of that.
Yeah. What I would have... Okay, now I'm backtracking. I think I would have had her smush them together and then, like, literally smush them together. Like, literally, like... like, you know, there's like this whole fucking YouTube, TikTok, Instagram shit where there's, like, this pressure machine that, like, squishes, like, Play-Doh and shit or whatever the fuck, and just squishes weird shit. I would have had them just squish together. To the point to where they're nothing, like just squish, and then had them like scream and shit, and it would have been super gross. And it's like, oh fuck, I don't want to look at this shit. Like their fucking heads are like just squishing into each other. I would have done that because that would have been like, y'all are the opposites for each other. Like y'all are both toxic people, and that would have like made sense with the metaphor of both of them taking advantage of each other. One of them being gross and dirty and nasty and poor. One of them being gross, dirty and nasty and rich. They're the same kind of people, just different wealth statuses, but they're the same shitty, evil, fucking disrespectful, careless people. Facts. And just have them melt into the same person, and then they just die.
Yep.
And
Ooh,
I
that
think
would have
that would have
been.
been a cool.
That would have been cool and gruesome, and I live for the gore and the that would have been great. And yeah,
Mm,
also just to backtrack, that rape scene was like, what the fuck? Because
yeah.
like what I don't I was okay, yeah. I feel like it was a really quick scene, so I was like reading it like, wait, what? Like what is happening? Like, is he raping her? Because
Hmm.
it's like almost at first like they're playing off of this like
Yeah.
aggression, you
Yeah.
know? And
It
then
was confusing.
yeah, so I was like, is this consensual? But then at the end, like, but right before it's happening, then it doesn't seem consensual. But then after it seems consensual again. So I'm like, I don't like after the scene has happened. Then they're like, oh, and then we both fell asleep, and then we wake up, and she's like, can I come with you? I'm like, literally, what the fuck is happening? And he's talking about like the
Yeah.
scratch marks, but then they're like both hitting each other. Oh, and I did want to bring this up because I was like, oh, I gotta make a note of this one just cuz. But was it really necessary for Stephen King to be like, after Billy slaps what's her name, Chris, and her lip
Oh,
is
I know
swollen?
exactly what you're gonna say. Yeah.
I had to just bring this up. Was
Oof.
it
Yeah.
necessary to say that her lip was like negroid? I was like,
Mm. Yeah,
I
I heard that and I was like, wow, Steven?
literally
Mr. King?
that's how I felt. I was like, wait a minute. Like
Yo.
backtrack. And the funny thing was, I was reading that last, like I was reading
Ugh.
a little bit on my lunch break, and so like my wife was home, and so I'm just sitting there reading, and then I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, can you read this? And I'm like, just read this little blurb. And she reads it in her face, and she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I just want to make sure I wasn't reading that weird. Like, I'm like, what does this word mean? And of course, like,
Mm.
I'm reading on the Kindle. So I like
Yeah.
highlight it to see what the word, like what the Kindle says, and it's like, oh, of African origin. Like, I already know what he's saying, but I needed the confirmation. And I just thought, I'm
Yeah.
like, he couldn't have just said her lip was swollen. Like,
Yeah. That grade A racist as fuck
right?
fucking description.
What
Like,
the fuck was that?
there's no way around it. That was fucking racist as fuck. I remember listening to it, I was like, why did you fucking, like, out of all the words in the English fucking dictionary,
Right.
that's what you fucking picked.
There's so
You,
many other
Mr.
things.
Writer, like, he's a fucking English professor at this time. Like, really, dude? There's
Bro.
no, like, wow. Yeah, I was like, God damn, man. Like, there's.
And like, I'm not like, not to like pull the racist card or anything. It just was so, I was just like, that felt unnecessary. Like, there was like no
Yep.
indication this whole book
Hmm.
about any, like, I had no idea I was about to read this word. It just popped up, and I'm like, okay. I feel like
Yeah.
literally any other description could have been used, and I would have understood what you were saying. He could have just stopped at like her lip was swollen.
Yeah. That was fun. And that's like the thing with like this era, and like, I mean, there's so many writers that like do this kind of shit. Like, I
Mhm.
remember I was reading this book, what was it? Like, it was like this, about this like fucking weather balloon traveling across Africa, and all the descriptions were so horribly racist. I was like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Mhm.
And this is like the guy who wrote like 5,000 Leagues Under the Ocean, and like Travel to the Moon, and like to Journey to the Center of the Earth, or whatever. Like, some renowned fucking author. And I was like, this dude's racist as fuck. Like, no one talks about this. Like, he is
Mhm.
literally racist as fuck. And like,
Mhm.
I feel that from this description, and like, I'm like, oh my god, like, I hope this is it, because if he does this again, I'm like, you fucked up, man. Like, you can't fucking, like, you can't just dust this under the rug. Like, you know, what the fuck, like, it's just such a specific fucking racist ass motherfucking thing. Like, you can't fucking, oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
that shit pissed me off. I was Oh my god. Oh
Yeah.
my fucking god. Yeah.
LOL. Well, that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to make sure I brought it up at least one time because I told my wife, I said, I'm going to say this on the podcast. I was like, I'm going to bring that up.
Hell
I
yeah.
don't have much to say, but I just wanted to say, was it necessary?
So I guess the final question, with all the shit we talked and all the drinks we talked, what do you giving this thing out of 10? What is your current impressions?
Okay.
How you
Um,
feeling?
so at the end of the Kindle book, it prompted me to rate, and I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh,
So I couldn't give it the full 5 because there was a
yeah.
lot of stuff that I felt like I could change. But then 3 felt too low. Like that felt just more like, oh, it's mediocre. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I didn't hate it, but I felt like I still enjoyed the book. It was an easy read, and even though there's a lot of stuff again that I would change, we didn't necessarily get like the huge plot twist, but I still felt like at the end I got more like surprising things that I wasn't expecting, just like with the amount of gore and how many people died and how everybody died, how intentional the whole thing was. Like that was all still like, okay, cool. Like I found myself like really excited that I'm like, all right, we're going to get to watch the movies after this. Like I really want to see the movie
Yeah,
adaptations.
I'm
And I know you
excited.
talked about them a little bit earlier, and it might not be like how this book was. But I still want to see like what the director's adaptations of this book were, because I really just feel like I need to see this on the big screen.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I'd say like a four out of 5 stars. Out of 10 though, like I feel like it doesn't necessarily like translate, but maybe like a 7 out of 10.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
not like the best book, and it's not the best Stephen King book I've read, but it was like if I had started here at Stephen King, if I started at Carrie, this was the first book I read, I would still be interested enough to continue reading more Stephen King. Like
Yeah.
this would not have turned me off. It wouldn't have made me like, oh my god, I love what Stephen King does. But I would definitely be interested to read other stories if this had been the first one, if this had been my
Mhm.
introduction.
Yeah. I agree.
Mhm.
I agree. I'm actually okay, so you're at a 7 out of 10, 4 out of 5 stars. I think I am first time I read it, 9 out of 10. Second time I read it,
Okay.
8 out of 10. Third
Mhm.
time I read
Mhm.
it, 7 out of 10. I think this is the fifth time, this is the first time I heard it. I think I'm at a
Okay.
6 out of 10. I
Okay.
think it's all right. I think it's all right. I think there's so many like issues that I like as a wannabe writer, like I think about like, man, I can see so much shit that I would change out of this book. I mean, we went into that whole discussion, like
Mhm.
even just one description, like come on, motherfucker, and then
Yeah.
like there's so many like little plot things
Mhm.
that I'm like character things that I'm like and
Mhm.
then structure things that I'm like so there's like a lot of things that I think is flawed. So I think it's a very flawed book, but it is still there's an interesting idea at the corner of it, like in the central idea. I think it's worth reading, but I think it's all right. I think it's all
Mhm.
right. So I give it a 6 out of 10,
Okay.
which is surprising to me because I rate this lower than Red Rising. Like I think Red
Mhm.
Rising is
Mhm.
7.
Yeah.
Even still, like I think that would be still like I would recommend Red Rising over
Yeah.
Carrie
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at this point, just because I think Red Rising captures, broad audience. I think it captures a lot of ideas and social messages that I think would be helpful for people to like think about and
Mhm.
understand.
Mhm.
In this book, it does bring up stuff, but then it trips over itself so many
Yeah.
times with the structure, the characters, like all the shit that we've talked about. Like that's us. That's our
Mhm.
lives
Mhm.
being imprinted on it, and that's something I'm trying to like learn as a critic. Is like how much of shit is us?
Right.
Like
Right.
how much
Right.
of it is our experience being portrayed onto it, and how much is is it of the person writing's life experience? And like granted he did experience these two women who committed suicide in his high school and he didn't do anything about it, and that's where he wrote this from. But then I also see like your life experience, my life experience, other people's life experiences that
Mhm.
like we experience it and we add things from our lives.
Yeah.
And I think he is lacking in a lot of points. He's lacking in really understanding what brought those people to those points
Mm-hmm.
through a mother.
Yep.
You know, like I think he kind of wrote that off, and I think that's kind of, I wouldn't say offensive or anything like that, but I do think it's weakened, and I don't think he paid as much respect as he could have. And granted, like this is the first book, you know, this is his first novel. This is like baby Stephen King.
Right.
He didn't know
Right.
what the fuck he was doing.
Right.
I think he would even say like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, because this is the first, you know, this is your first time out of the gate. So I don't think it's offensive or anything like that, but I do think it is probably his weakest book so far that I've read, and I think it probably, I'd bet money that it's probably his weakest that we will read.
Yeah.
And because it's such a heavy topic, and I don't think he has the experience or the knowledge or the like skill to tackle this subject.
Yeah.
I do think it's still good though, and it still brings up a lot of things, you know, the menstrual cycle stuff, being about a woman, being about a young girl, but it still like trips over itself because he doesn't know what he's really talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
don't think
yeah, I agree. It could have been deeper, but at the same time, well, there's a lot of stuff again that could have been different, and yeah, he could have spent more time. He probably didn't really know what he was talking about then, like you said. And so maybe he really couldn't have done better than he did. Maybe he could now, or maybe if it was just a different writer who, I don't know what Stephen King's relationship to his own mother is like. But maybe if it was someone who has those types of like troubled relationships with their parents, maybe we would have gotten a better like storyline when it comes to that actual relationship, where they would have like put some emphasis on it, put some time into it, and really kind of developed that, where it would have made it a better story overall, and it would have made it a better ending overall as well. But like I just feel like, I feel like he wasn't like able to do that sort of thing, and so it's almost like I wish he wouldn't have even. It's like he wanted to get the end. Like like the end just didn't fit everything else that he set up, and so I wish it would have been a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the story was still good, and we still had a lot to talk about. Like regardless of the fact that he really kind of like fucked up on that that relationship. I mean, we had like there was a lot of other like things that were happening in this story that we were able to talk about a lot. You know, and like the bullying that brought up a lot of stuff. And even though he didn't do well with the mother-daughter thing, we talked about parenting a lot because of the stuff. And we talked about religion a lot because of what he was talked about, or because of what he brought up. So there was a lot of different points here. And so he did well with those. Like, and they were conversation starters. So I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I probably wouldn't reread this book. So I know you've read it a few times, and you know, like you started off like at a 10 or a 9, and I started off at a 7. So I'm already like, I wouldn't necessarily reread this, but again, I am excited to see the film adaptations of this. I want to see like what did they pull out of this, because I know I haven't seen the original, but then even the remake, I'm like, I don't remember it. So I would love to see what they did with it. And if I think it's horrible, I will come back next week and just shit on it, you know? That's fine.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So yeah, that's going to be a wrap on this book. And yeah, like you mentioned, so our plan for next week, I guess, just to give people a little, you know, behind the scenes. So we're going to watch the original Carrie. I think we had said that was streaming on Amazon Prime or something.
I think so. Yeah.
It's streaming somewhere.
Yeah, you can just look it up. I'm looking it up to see if I can figure out which one it was. But I believe it is Amazon Prime. I think Amazon might have both of them. Okay, I know for sure the second one is on Prime Video. And then first one.
Okay, the first one is not on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And the one thing I just want to say before we even watch these, the thing I hate is like Carrie is described as a pudgy, I think is the word they use, but like as a thicker, like younger woman.
Yeah.
And both of these movies, she's just like thin as fuck.
Correct.
Like no offense to Chloe Grace Moretz, I love her.
Yeah.
But like this should have been a thicker woman.
And I was surprised when I saw him, or when I read him describing Carrie, because I'm like, oh, like not at all. Like again, I've seen the second movie, so I'm thinking like, of course, she is my like idea of what Carrie kind of looks like, and his description was nothing like that. So I'm like, yeah, the director did not do a good job of finding somebody who actually like
Mm-hmm.
embodied what Carrie would have looked like.
Yep.
She sounds like she
Yep.
just looked like a simple little like
Mm-hmm.
acne having teenager, like a plump little girl, and like it should have just been that, like like
Exactly. Yep. But Hollywood loves
yeah.
their thin ass women, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, they do, true that.
Yep. But yeah, so next week we will watch the I think it's 1976
Mhm.
original Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma, and then the 2013 Carrie,
Mhm.
with Chloe Grace Moretz, directed by Kimberly
Yep.
Pierce. So those are the two that we're gonna watch. So yeah, so thank you so much for listening to this final episode of our Carrie breakdown. Let us know what you thought. Did you agree with our opinions? Did you disagree with our opinions? What did you think about all the things we said? Email us at readrinktalk@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can message us there at any of those places. If you did like our conversations, please rate and review us at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and send us a message. And if you want to check out my other things, I have a video game news podcast called Headset Chat. I have a movie review podcast called Cineverm. And I have 2 YouTube channels, A Lonely Gamer, where I play Xbox games, and A Lonely Critic, where I do solo reviews. And yeah, so next week we will review the 2 Carrie adaptation movies. So be sure to check those out and watch those and catch up with us next week
Mhm.
as we give our thoughts on those. Yeah, so we will see you next week.